And so now we will start this plenary session. Let me just recall the process will be basically the same as this morning. We have 1 hour with Thierry Magnin. I will say a few words of introduction just after. And then there is a half an hour coffee break. And then we have the parallel session. Some have to leave, some are staying here or in the room for the Contemporary Humanism Network. So I'm very almost impressed a bit and pleased because we have I owe you so much, Thierry, and I'm so glad to welcome you and to introduce you today. Probably you all know Thierry Magnin, but let's say at least that he is the Vice Rector, Chancellor, dedicated to humanities at Lille Catholique Universities. He has been our rector in Lyon a few years ago. But what I'd like to say, maybe you don't know about Thierry, is that among many other things, he has been a pioneer in terms of technology ethics with that idea of embedded ethics. So when I arrived in Lyon under Thierry's supervision, there was already a tradition, and it was already a bit a tradition, with a group dedicated to that, of going to work with engineers, scientists in natural science project, in technological project. I think we can mention Metagenopolis, Metacardis project, things like that. They were running not about around AI, but about the how you call that, microbiota, intestinal gut, and the bacteria in it. And it was at a moment where now it's more and more common that you have the funders, they ask for an ethical part in the project, a thick one, where you really raise questions about what you're doing and so on. But when you look a bit back, the decades before, either they were almost nothing except things when you do experiments on people or things like this, very classical, or it was in terms of compliance with laws and things like this, so you would hire a lawyer to be sure that you're compliant. But what you impulsed was really to try to say, okay, we don't even know maybe the ethical questions that we will have to confront with, and we need to work embedded in the projects with the researchers to discuss what might be the point of interest that are at the same time technological and ethical, or that have a meaning for collective life and political problems. So it was really wonderful to be part of that. And clearly, NHNAI project is in the let's say the trail of that, in that inspiration. And I have to say that we wouldn't be here in that configuration without Thierry, because he was at the very beginning the initiator of NHNAI project itself, even if you pass me a bit the ball after that, but so it is important that it is said. And so I'm very happy to give you the floor for 40 minutes for a lecture on Christian thought, humanism, AI, and neuroscience. Please.
Thank you very much, Mathieu. Very impressive. It is a story of transmission between generations. Thank you. I'm very happy about that. Here I am speaking about some fields other people are working together. So it's an essay to propose some inspiration coming from Christian social thought and or teaching to take into account this teaching in relation with ethical questions and anthropological questions related to artificial intelligence and neurosciences. It is a question of freedom in many different positions. First of all, I will just speak about some possible Christian scientist stance in front of and in dialogue with the society in front of these challenges coming from artificial intelligence and neurosciences that can be discussed as a stance. Then the freedom is first to recognize and to promote human dignity at the time of artificial intelligence and then at the time of neurosciences. Then we will see a third point related to the difference, I would say, between artificial intelligence and artificial machines and human intelligence, crossing artificial intelligence with what neurosciences shows today about livings and particularly humans. I will call artificial intelligence a bodiless intelligence with many different consequences. Then the freedom is also to promote common good, solidarity, subsidiarity, participation, and integral ecology. I will give some words about, and on Thursday with Atem I will develop more. Then we will conclude, if possible, but it is something very open, in fact, to discussion and to work. What stands? I am a teacher, I am a researcher, as many of you. Multidisciplinary university and involved in education. I am a citizen, you are, with others, with companies also, with communities, different form of. I try to be a vigilant technophile. I don't know if it is a good translation in English, but you see, that's a challenge. And also, I'm very inspired by many theologians, and particularly Basil of Caesarea, at a time where artificial intelligence was very developed, as you know. And at this time, he is speaking in one of his homily about the opening of the workshop of the divine creation to man. And even man, we can enter in the logos and technos of God. What does that mean at time of neurosciences and artificial intelligence? Related to the covenant, sure. With Gaudium et Spes, we know that humanity is currently living through a new age of its story at this time, characterized by profound and rapid changes that are gradually extended across the globe, provoked by humans through their intelligence and creative activity. These changes rebound on humans themselves, affecting their judgment, desires, both individual and collective, and their ways of thinking and acting towards things as well as toward their fellow beings. That's very actual. Benedict the 16th, he said, technology is a part of the mission to cultivate and care for the earth that God has entrusted to humanity. That's a positive view on technology. And it should aim to strengthen the alliance between the covenant between human beings and the environment, which meant to reflect God's creative laws. And also, technological development, we know that, can lead one to think that technology is self-sufficient. That's the main danger. When humanity in question is only the how, neglects to consider the many whys that drive action. This is why technology takes an ambiguous characteristics born from human creativity as an instrument of personal freedom. That's very interesting to see that. It can be understood as an element of absolute freedom, which is not freedom enough, a freedom that seeks to free itself from the limits that things inherently bear. That's well said. Pope Francis, challenges of what is a progress at the time of techno-economy, particularly. It is not enough to strike a balance between protecting nature and making financial profits, or between preserving the environment and achieving progress. It is about redefining progress, technological and economic development that does not leave a better world and a comprehensive higher quality of life cannot be considered as a progress, a challenge. And also with the main point of the Christian social teaching, which are, I think, very good backgrounds for everybody, not only for Christians, but for many people. Human dignity, I will speak about that, common good, solidarity, subsidiarity, and participation, universal destination of goods, preferential option for the poor, and integral ecology. Second point, freedom to recognize and promote human dignity at the time of artificial intelligence. First of all, I think we have to learn a minimum how artificial intelligence works. No freedom if we don't understand a little bit about. So I'm not going to explain how it works, but there are a lot of different things that can be introduced to everybody, in fact. We have to find good pedagogies. And particularly, what does that mean, learning machines? And what are these databases? Second on how it works, that means how it changes our relation, our connection with reality, and even with scientific truth. It's not a research of causality, it's a research of correlations. And when I look to the evolution of a researcher, when we were young, not you but me, understanding to make was the leitmotiv, I would say. Then with technosciences, it's more making to understand. And now, with artificial intelligence piloting some technologies, making through predicting without true understanding in a scientific point of way. That's a lot of evolution, in fact, in mentalities. Another way also to be present to others through this numerical revolution. And we look to a kind of mechanization of the human and the humanization of robots. Did you see that? Both together. That's a new time. To promote freedom is also to work the ethical question relative to artificial intelligence inside, not after only, but inside the artificial intelligence development. So that means in our university to cross for students looking to technical development, looking also together with ethical questions. I think both together in the same way. You look here to a lot of different ethical questions that Dominic take into account this morning, and you can see in the recent report of UNESCO, which is a very interesting for education point very recently. Also to measure the impact of AI systems to jobs, even today, and future jobs. A lot of change. What does that mean about curricula today at the time of artificial intelligence? Induce the change in mentalities, whatever we think about. Education also to be free when working and living with intelligent machines and to serve the common good in society. And for that, I think we can try, it's not definitive, but we can try to define some differences between human intelligence and what we call artificial intelligence. It's also to precise what does that mean, intelligence. I know that there are a lot of discussion in a philosophical point of view, but which are very important. Can we speak about intelligent machine for a machine which does not understand nothing to what they said, and they have no consciousness? I can prove to you, no, as a good student. I asked ChatGPT about, do you have an inner life? And I asked it on March 16, because if you ask it now, you will not have the same answer. Look to this very polite answer, smart answer. Artificial intelligence is a technology that enables machines to reason and make decisions, and make decisions based on algorithm and data. It does not have its own inner life as a human does, lacking consciousness or emotions. Current AI systems do not have the ability to feel or perceive things in the same way humans do. However, some researchers are thinking to develop systems that could mimic certain aspects of human inner life, But it is important, very polite, it is important to remember that even with this advancement, AI will always remain a technology created by humans, and its functioning will fundamentally differ from that of a human in our life. No problem. No, it's a joke. Many problems. Now, okay, it's not an intelligence as a human intelligence or even an animal intelligence, but if we take into account a basic definition, capacity to adapt to a new situation, at this moment, the intelligent machine has this capacity, sometimes much more than you and me. You see a lot of different questions asked from UNESCO worldwide, and recent paper from UNESCO, and particularly, how will this technology alter our understanding of what we are as human beings? And if you look to the experience of avatar and immortality today, you can discuss with your grandfather who died many years ago with his avatar. What does that mean for humanities and for relationships between humanities? It is possible today. How will it reshape our understanding of human intelligence? They are very important and deep questions. Now, also to promote dignity is also to take into account what can be think about this intelligent machines, which is based on calculation and stochastic calculations. Is thinking just calculating? A very old philosophical question to take into account with artificial intelligence. The primacy to measurable things. Everything is measurable in the life and in the human life. And also, because it's one of the aim, I think, we try with artificial intelligence to go through perfection, I would say, kind of perfection of functionalities. The difference between a perfect machine, if possible, never perfect, but, and the accomplished human, which is completely different, and many people with disabilities show us a lot of differences between the two. I will put also the different form of human intelligence in the field. Today we have the opportunities in education to open not only to the famous hypothetical deductive intelligence, but also to a lot of interactions between different types of intelligence. And so what place can take the artificial intelligence among this human intelligence, and mainly how to promote humanisms where AI will support, will assist in a good way humans and not drive them. What freedom also we are going to experiment in the interactions between humans and intelligent robots. A lot of things like that. A lot of film of science fiction, which are quite interesting to look at, like Ex Machina, for instance. But we have not also to forget that artificial intelligence pilot a lot of new development, technical development, particularly what we call NBIC, nanotechnology, biotechnology, and cognitive sciences, piloted by AI, by information, by artificial intelligence many times, and particularly their convergence. So we are now able to pilot the fabrication of new artificial DNA, for instance, or to modify, by the famous method CRISPR-Cas9, to modify the genomes, even for humans. It has been made already, piloted by artificial intelligence. That means a lot of... with a very good point, look at this man. We was with very... he has an exoskeleton to help him to try to work And so this exoskeleton is piloted by an implant, a neural implant, and coupled with artificial intelligence algorithm is able to work now and to have the basic life, which is quite good. You know also that it's a numerostic point of view. Now with artificial intelligence, people who have this kind of problem can work, people who are deaf can hear, people who are blind can look. But what does that mean when the Neuralink implant is in the same way, I would say, looked for enhancement? What use of neural signal? That's the kind of transition between to repair and to enhance, well known for the post and the transhumanism equations, where a kind of idealization of humans can be the fusion with the machine. Don't think it is only in fiction films. Sometimes it is in the mind of human mind. Also to recognize and promote human dignity at the time of neurosciences. I remember when I was a young researcher, neurosciences development were looking as very materialistic point of view. We were able to understand human intelligence from neurons. Now it evolves, and even if there are also materialistic point of view, there are a lot of very different interactions which are taken into account. And that is quite interesting to put in front of the development of artificial intelligence, the development of biology and neurosciences today, the living sciences. And particularly for humans and living, the role of the body and a lot of interaction with brains. Here there is an example of the interactions, very complex, between our microbiota, which is just digesting the good food we receive in Italy. And perhaps it's an opportunity for you to sleep. That's a question of interaction. And my talk perhaps had something to sleep. But there are a lot of interactions with the brain. And it's quite interesting to look to neuroscientists and biologists looking to this kind of interactions between the biological, the psychological, and even the practice, the spiritual practice. All these interactions in the two directions that the novelty. And you have biological indicators of this kind of interactions between the choice, for instance, you are doing in your life, conscious choice you are doing in life, and the biology, the practice of spirituality and the biology of the brain. Look at this screen capture that I made in INSERM, which is an important institute for health in France and research in health. The title was, "And if meditating improve aging?" which is a good question for me. This is what the results of a pilot study conducted by INSERM in Caen and Lyon. 73 people aged 65 on average understand, you see, and among them the meditation experts. Look, to be a meditation expert you have to have a lot of hours of meditation. Show significant differences in certain regions of brain by reducing stress, anxiety, negative emotions, sleep problems, which tend to increase with age. Meditation could potentially reduce the harmful effects of these factors and have a positive impact of brain aging. Interesting, this kind of mutual interaction between the biological aspect, the psychological aspect, and the practice of a spirituality. Now, next point, with these different points, can we try to make some differences between artificial intelligence and human intelligence, and particularly through the link between emotion and reason for humans. That was a lot of study in neurosciences since many years. And many of you know the famous story of Phineas Cage. And this man get an accident, and he was deprived of his sensation, and also find himself lacking emotional markers because he received a birth inside the brain. And it destroyed emotional markers and memory of experiences. But he was alive, and he was obviously with a normal life, but very, very quickly with a lot of changes in his character because his emotional markers and memory experience were destroyed. And he was unable, in fact, to make good decisions. And somatic markers come into play when we consider different options before making a decision. They were no longer present for Phineas Cage. He thus lost part of his ability to act based on social norms previously learned by his brain. Fundamental links between his emotion and his reasoning were thereby broken. So the link of emotion and reason through the body, which is quite important. The connection between the felt experience rooted in biology, the feelings and emotion it provokes, and their interaction with mental processes, with the human mind putting words to these experiences are quite important. The brain establishes kind of neural maps of our bodily sensations, and our felt experiences and sensations are read. Emotions thus come to consciousness and interact with thought. So neurosciences is now able not to define the consciousness, but to have an access to the mechanism of access to consciousness, differencing awareness and consciousness. So a lot of different work I am not going to speak more about. Look at this very interesting reasoning of the philosopher Bidball and many others. It should be noted that attempting to define consciousness is already an act of consciousness. So the statement of the problem implies the term of its solution. You must have a consciousness to describe consciousness, whatever you are, and even if you are a neuroscientist. Neurosciences looks to memory, language, ability to imagine, predict, calculate, and share, have combined into a remarkable co-evolutionary spiral as described by epigenetics, these new disciplines, demonstrating that innate and acquired, nature and culture operate as a loop. This interaction, I would say as a physicist, this entanglement between biology, psychology, and spiritual practical are not without resonance. I said resonance, I don't say the demonstration, but it's a kind of resonance with what we can call also an entanglement between body, soul, and spirit in this very old Christian anthropological tradition. Particularly, we are coming from Lyon, with Saint Irénée de Lyon. You look to this sentence of Saint Irénée de Lyon in Adversus Hereses, Irenaeus. Shape flesh alone by the Creator, by God, is not the perfect man. It is only the body of man, therefore a part of man. The soul alone is not the man either. It is only the soul of man, therefore a part of man. The spirit is not the man either. It is called spirit, not man. It is the mixture and union, and in Greek is the krasis of all these things that constitute the perfect man. And perfect here is complete, is not perfection as we think about. Interesting to put together this in resonance, I would say, this discovering of living science by their own method and their own way, and this whole Christian tradition. And when I was young, it was a more dualistic tradition than this kind of interaction. And we see here a very interesting point of view. It's a question also, this entanglement can be related to a kind of interaction between robustness and vulnerability. That means to be robust enough not to destroy when you have accident, but also to be able to adapt with this vulnerability. That means the possibility of changing something inside to adapt through the environment. So vulnerability is vulnerability and ontological properties of living being, not only on a philosophical or theological point of view, but also on the point of view of biology. A living being is alive insofar as it is vulnerable, permeable to its biological, psychic, and spiritual environment. Can we say that? Specificity of the human living being compared to the intelligent machine, isn't it particularly in this interaction, entanglement between body, psyche, and spirit? I'm not speaking about the spirit of a machine, but from the invulnerable bodiless cyborg, which is the idealization of transhumanism, some transhumanism, not all, to vulnerable human, capax Dei. That's a challenge for theologians also. Differences between, for me it's the most important thing, that differences between connections and relationships. We are in connection with a machine, even if this connection is very, is a lot of information through it and a lot of performance, I would, technical performance. Relationship is something different, related to vulnerability sometimes. And we know that we have not good relationship if we stop our vulnerability. That's well known. The theologian, the French theologian Paul Valadier said some years ago, something which is very well known, but which is well expressed: the human exception and the sense of limits. It's not always the case for humans, the sense of limit, but the human being is not a creature confined to its animal conditions, said Valadier, but a speaking being, exposed to its own vulnerability, to the suffering of others, and to compassion. It is often our vulnerabilities, even our weakness, failure, that are the crucible of an opening, a creative breach, and perhaps a disruptive creative breach, for reason. The vulnerable, that's my writings, the vulnerable human, at the opposite hand of the spectrum from the invulnerable cyborg, embracing the Pascal mystery, the victory of life stronger than any death, the passage from death to life, and the end of times, but already today in the entanglement, body, psyche, spirit, with the breath of the spirit. Is there any good things to study and to deploy and to study more? That's a kind of message, I would say. Now, the question is concretely to promote common good, solidarities, subsidiarities. Is it possible that we don't take into account only the danger of artificial intelligence, but the very good opportunities of artificial intelligence at the time of neurosciences also, because a very good crossing between the two. Is the management of big data in medicine, for instance, open to everyone? That's a good question. And I get 5 minutes again? A bit more. So I would like just to show you one example. It is coming from France, but because in health, for health, France try to make a common good. It's what we call Mon Espace Santé, which can be reached by every French man or woman who has, it's about 42 million people in France who are able to access this Mon Espace Santé, this space which is piloted by artificial intelligence. I don't say that it gets all the good qualities, but I think it try to participate to common good. That means, to be able to make a good prediction in medicines, you must have a big data basis. Here, the opportunity is to share our data about your health with an anonymization. That's the question, big question, difficult question, with the civilization of surveillance, as we said. That's a big question. And to be able then to put to the common market, I would say it's not a market in France, normally it's not a market. It's to put your health informations together with all other people in your country. That's something related to common good, I think. So the questions are, and solidarity, common good and solidarity. The questions of confidentiality, the question of data security, the patient empowerment, and particularly the access to personal information, how it works, this access, is it possible? So you have a lot of different questions today. Also the active participation of patients inside this, the governance particularly of this kind of platform. How it works for the improvement in quality of care. We can say that the assistance for diagnostic will be helped by good share and the quality of the databases which are shared. How it works about information and to share information. What is the equity in access to care that it allows? Is it an improvement or? And we think it can be an improvement. And the promotion of the common good for research also, aggregated data for research, which is something quite important. And prevention and public health. There are a lot of limitations we are working on, and many people are working on, significant challenge of accessibility, security, surveillance, integration, and user acceptance, and particularly this question of surveillance with cyber attacks and so and so. But for me, it's a kind of attempt to participate to common good, and particularly here for health. You can see also in terms of solidarity, subsidiarity, and participation, digital platform, we try to do that to promote collaboration and solidarity and a democratic life. I will speak more about that on Thursday for ATEM meeting, and particularly with some examples for ecology today, and what we call the use of artificial intelligence in the commons today. I will speak more about that in terms of ecology. I would like to conclude, to be able to share my time with questions. Yes, I think that artificial intelligence can assist more than support, assist new humanisms and peace. It is a possibility, but it's a very long job. And Pope Francis, in his famous letter of last January, make a challenge for us, and it's a very nice sentence. Shall we turn swords into plowshares? With this sentence coming from Isaiah chapter 2, which is a very interesting challenge. And I think it is possible to do that, but not so easy, and perhaps it's a little bit an utopia, but if we don't think and try utopia, we are not human. Perhaps the machine will never try utopia, but we can try with a vigilance and to try that. I don't want to make the apologetic of artificial intelligence, no. It's a lot of job, a lot of challenge, and a lot of danger. But I think this challenge that the Pope Francis gave to us is a very interesting challenge, and it can move the way to educate to artificial intelligence in our different universities and schools. It is a real challenge, I think, which is quite important. Thank you very much indeed.
Well, thanks a lot, Thierry, for not having even requested from me that I signal the 5 minutes. It's perfect, and we have even a bit more time than you went faster than 40 minutes. So it was really, really interesting. I propose to open the floor for a question. Of course, I have some in reserve if necessary, but as I know that I can ask them to you also more directly, please, if someone would like to. Of course, the only thing is if you could come to tell it also to people online, and maybe in easiest way, yeah. I think people online won't understand. And then Marie-Jo also after. Yeah, so first, sorry, there is a first someone, or as you wish, it's okay for me, but, okay, and then we can form a line, but it's probably not that necessary.
Many thanks, Thierry, for your brilliant speech. You have given the example of healthcare in France, l'espace santé. Don't you think that this is a question of trust? When I see this espace santé, I must also recognize that a lot of people, a lot of French people, don't access to that. They don't want. They are not trusting that, etc. At the same time, we must also recognize that was said a lot of times in the medical field that all the data of this system and a lot of others could be used in order to make a lot more research about all the diseases that we have in France. If we could collect all the data for that and that disease, we could also have a lot of information, pieces of information, in order to give counsels, whatever. And this is not really allowed. There is a huge reluctance from the insurance, the Sécurité sociale in France, the health insurances. I think this possibility, okay, this is a risky possibility because the data we have seen also that some have been put in the open through the attacks, cyber attacks, you have mentioned them, etc. And so there is a lack of trust, and I must say that using the data is also a question of trust. But at the same time, this could reduce a lot health costs if we could know more about the diseases, illnesses, and whatever. Thank you.
Thank you, Mario. You gave also a lot of good answer to your questions. There are a lot of risks, and I think the first thing you said is a question of trust. And today, in western part of Europe, there is a question of trust in regards to science, to institution, a question of authority of, and I think that the COVID was one point which make a deployment of this kind of difficulty to trust. And perhaps it has some, we can understand, because when we look to a lot of different cyber attacks, we can say that the protection of our anonymized data is not so obvious. We can understand, but I think there is something more. And perhaps something related to what you said, Dominique, this morning, the difference between an individualistic model and a personalist model. You said that this morning. So the vigilance about the protection of data, and particularly when it is related to health, if my assurer is looking to my data in health, I will pay a lot. Okay, but also the ability to share something coming from us for the common good, I would say. And there are questions of sharing about health, public health, questions of cost. Then, as you said, questions of to allow research. Now, in what condition? And so I know it's very complex, but I would like to. I put this example because if it is not piloted by artificial intelligence, it is impossible to treat all these 42 million data coming from people. So it's a very interesting tool, when it is a tool, to assist this kind of common good. Now, with a lot of precaution we have to take. Yes, sure.
Thank you very much, Thierry. My question will be quite specific and linked maybe to an ecological response. But how can you explain that connection is one of the most used word or terminology, in the contemporary spiritual language, word terminology, individualistic, cosmic or oceanic, and linked to the neuroscience that you valorize. Would it signify a new era of spiritual artificial intelligence? What can Irene could say about that? Thank you.
Yes, for me it's not at random that this expression connection is developed a lot. We know that on a social network we can be in connection with a lot of friends, but till what point they are my friends? They are my friends because they put I like on what I wrote. It's not sufficient to be a friend. And I think also that social network, which can be very useful, I don't want to say that it's a danger, but only a danger. But in social, you preserve a kind of anonymous position. In connections, you are in connections with things where you are thinking, that will not really modify yourself. You will be protected, you are at distance. It is not true, in fact, because through the mentality, you will have a very important evolution in your mind. But I would say connections, you have connections with things, so you don't modify things, or you can modify things, but the things do not modify yourself. When you are in relation with, there are mutual modification, mutual evolution. It's a risk, and it's also life. And life is like that when you look to living science. There are relations, not only connections. There are also connections, but there are relations. And it's why the living matter is not the same that the matter itself that the physicist is looking at. And we will speak about connections between electrons, for instance, or between inert matter. We will speak more about relations between living matter, if I can say. And this kind of relations has to be, I would say, taken into account through vulnerability, particularly. This question is a well-known question, an interdisciplinary well-known question. I think even if the vulnerability gets their own definition in each field, which is normal, there are perhaps something to improve the use of good relations and not only to connection. I think so. I think it's a very important point to take into account. And if you think you have relationship with a machine in the profound sense of relationships, there are confusion. It's why I put the example of the avatar for immortality, a kind of immortality. What does that mean to have a relation with your grandfather? And what does that mean to have a relation, for me it's only a connection, with the avatar of your grandfather after the death of the grandfather? That's not the same. And the confusion is a terrible confusion in the sense of human, I think.
Thank you. Yeah.
Well, thank you for your contribution. Given that the goal of Christianity is theosis, so the divinization of man, as God became human, humans are about to become God. It's their perfection. To what degree do you think technological transhumanism can be a path towards that, or actually the opposite of it? Because I'd say true transhumanism is Christianity, and we don't need technology in order to divinize or to deify ourselves. And therefore, the big question is, let's say, AI as a topos of imitation of the Dianetic notion of human intelligence. Isn't that kind of a one-sided extreme, which does not take into account the noetic dimension of, let's say, spirituality, for instance? So the big question is really, is AI and the technological transhumanism serving theosis as the true goal of humanity or not?
David will answer this question. I understand that we try to find immortality. I understand that. And I remember in a congress in United States, they asked me, some people involving transhumanists asked me, you are Christian, you promote immortality, so you have to be very interested by the immortality prone by transhumanists. And I don't want to give a judgment on the people here. Huh? It's only on ideas. What impressed me is to put death outside of the object. Outside of death is a limitation. Death is a biological limitation. Disease and death are related to our biology and the deterministic point of our biology. That has to be put off. And it was not monsters. Huh? They were not Frankenstein. Huh? They were very good people, and you can drink a good beer with them, and it was very interesting to share with them. No problem of that. But they were thinking, some of them, where I was speaking with, they were speaking that technology is able, and particularly artificial intelligence, is able to eradicate our defect, what they call defect, to prone a kind of perfection. Immortality and perfection were going on together. I think that's a lot of questions related to the subject of our conference here. What does that mean to be human at the time of transhumanism? Not to say that the transhumanists are the monster. No, I don't want to say that. We have to go on with discussion, and some of you were able to discuss. That's good. But there are a lot of deep differences in the view of what is life. What is life? Even if some transhumanists are very open to spirituality, yes. But what does that mean, spirituality? And what does that mean to recognize the limits of humans? The limits of humans. To recognize a limit of human, is it a weakness? Or is it an opening to life? Good questions.
Okay, so last intervention, please.
Thank you so much. Actually, this is kind of a keynote speech I want to hear. So I think it is very good for me to come here more than 14 hours, right? So that is worthy. Well, so yeah, I like the your kind of holistic way of embracing hard passions these days, including AI and neuroscience, which is kind of where I'm a religion and science dialogue, and. But I might say one thing I really, push you forward. I can see kind of a very brilliant Western mind trying to get hold of everything together. But maybe you go beyond your context, say, why not interreligious dialogue these days, not only Christian tradition, Christian social teaching, or say Confucianism, Taoism, Buddhism, whatever, So I want to push maybe your students and so interreligious dialogue is, I think, a little bit missing. So I will be very happy to have that kind of discussion, Second one is, I think it is very clear, so kind of impressive, to hear the machine intelligence and human intelligence is different because human intelligence is bodily intelligence. So that is very important, right? Of course. So cyborg, if you see the movie Matrix, the digital in cyberspace, the machine, cyborg, possibly cyborg cannot do is, number one is they don't have a body. Number two, they cannot breathe. So maybe not only machine intelligence doesn't have bodily, but they cannot breathe. So it is breathless intelligence. That's very important. So I like your final stop, the breed of speech is important. So if you go there, you have pneumatology, pneumato and ruach in Greek and in the Hebrew. It means not only spirit, but also breathing. So human were created by breathing of God. So that is the point, actually, we can develop pneumatology, theology, whatever, even neuroscience. So I want to challenge that too. So in other words, breathless intelligence. That is really maybe more than bodily intelligence. Thank you so much.
Thank you.
If you want. What is interesting in bodily is that it's related to incarnation. So it's why we, as Christians, we are very interested by, but not only Christians. But okay, that can be challenged. For the interreligious dialogue, sure. I come from Christian tradition. I look to the social teaching tradition, which I think is not very well known in the world, and which is quite interesting even for non-Christian people. But I know that spiritualities are larger than that, and I would be very interested if different people coming from different spiritualities are able to manage something related to how to use artificial intelligence in the common good and to make these differences between human beings. understood by many different traditions, okay? But what is the specific? So that means what is the human dignity we have really to take into account to practice artificial intelligence and to develop it. Yes, thank you.
So thank you, Thierry, for this wonderful talk and for the exchanges, and also for talking about that question of relationship and versus connection, not only on metaphysical point of view or ontological point of view, but also in what it means when we live something interesting. It's interesting, I think, with Angel, who is here with us with the work of the AI research group of the Center for Digital Culture of the Culture and Education Dicastery. They produced a book, so I take the opportunity to mention it, that is called Encountering AI. And basically there is the same distinction between relationship and something else. And there is the notion of self-gift also, and it's not metaphysical, it's something that we can action and feel. So it's great that we can have those discussions. And so let's go on discussing that during the coffee, and then we reconvene here in half an hour, a bit less, for the NHNAI session, in the room for contemporary humanism in the Olapia Sala del Consiglio, same as this morning. And so goodbye and see you tomorrow for the ATEM fellow. So thank you so much and bravo again.